Hey guys, it's Sarah with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we have a review and install of the Barricade HD Off-Road Front Bumper with LED lighting, fitting your 07 through 13 Chevy Silverado 1500. This is perfect for the Silverado owner who's looking for a high clearance front bumper that includes lighting and also has several mounting points for additional accessories. This full width front bumper features plate steel construction with a textured black powder coat finish. This bumper includes two high-powered LED cube lights that mount to brackets directly on the bumper. It also has several other mounting points for lighting in the center here, and mounting points for the addition of an overrider hoop, as well as a skid plate that you can find separately right here on the site. This bumper also works with your factory tow hooks if your truck has them, and also includes a bracket for a front plate if required by your state. So as far as price goes, this bumper comes in at around $950, which is middle of the road price-wise when compared to other options. And for your money, you are getting a high clearance steel front bumper that includes lighting, as well as several mounting points for additional accessories. And as far as the install goes, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It features a direct bolt-up install that can be done within 2 hours. So with that said, let's jump into the install. For this install, you will need an impact gun or a ratchet will work just fine, 21, 18, 15, and 10 millimeter sockets, a pop clip removal tool, 13 and 10 millimeter wrenches, the included Allen key, and you may want a razor knife or similar cutting tool if you choose to trim your wheel well liners. Alright, so the first step in our uninstall, we are going to pull the grill out. This is not a necessity if you'd like to get to the bolts behind it, but I think it makes it a little bit easier. So let's grab our pop clip removal tool and remove all of the pop clips holding on our Rad Sport cover. And with all the pop clips removed, pull up and remove your Rad Support cover. Next up, we're going to remove the 4 10 millimeter bolts holding on the top of our grill. With your 10 millimeter socket, get these removed. Now with the bolts removed out of the top of the grill, you can grab it and pull it straight back towards you to release the rest of the clips. With the grill removed, you can see the 21 millimeter bolt that you have to remove. Grab a 21 millimeter socket and you may want a small extension. Go ahead and get it removed. And there's another one on the other side of the truck. Go ahead and remove that one as well. Next up, we're going to remove the bolt holding on the bumper support bar. We're going to use a 15 millimeter socket, and you may want a small extension as well as a ratchet to get this out. Repeat that on the other side. All right, so be prepared now that all of the bolts are out of your bumper. It's not held on by anything right now, so make sure it's supported. Once you have a good hand on it, go ahead and remove your bumper. Next up, we're going to remove the caps on the end of the frame rails here. There's 2 nuts on the inside, they are 21s, so grab a 21 millimeter socket and let's get these removed. Remove the bolt plate out the other side and remove the cap off of your end of your frame rail. Repeat that on the other side. All right, now one more step before we can install our new bumper. We're gonna remove these supports because we don't need them for the new one. We wanna make sure they're out of the way. Now there's 2 15 millimeter bolts right underneath here attached to the frame. We're gonna get those removed. Grab your 15mm socket and go ahead and get them out. All right, now we are missing one bolt on the other side here, but you want to repeat that step on your other side. Remove all of the bolts that you have and remove the support off of the truck. All right, so in order to install our lighting, we first need to install these brackets on the top of our pod lights. To do this, you're going to place your pod light facing down. Once your bracket is lined up, and again, we're shooting for these openings on the side here, what we're gonna do is get our nut right into this slot behind the bracket that we just placed. This is a little bit hard, and if you don't wanna just drop it in there, what you can do is put a little bit of tape on top of a flathead, and that'll help you line it up. And once you have your nut in that opening, we're taking one of the bolts, going through the side, and threading it in. Make sure you are going through this bracket. And once you've started, you can remove your flathead, and with the included Allen key, start to tighten it down. Now we're not gonna get this all the way snug because we wanna line up the other side as well. Repeating with the other nut, go ahead and get it lined up. And again, we're threading in the bolt, making sure it goes through the bracket, and threading it into the nut. Now that you have both in, what we're going to do is tighten them down as evenly as possible on each side as we line up this top bracket. Now we can repeat that with the other light. All right, so we have our pod lights assembled, and now we can line them up on the bumper. What we're gonna do is slide the bolt up into the bracket that we installed on our pod light. There are two grooves there that are gonna hold this bolt in place as we tighten it down. We're gonna line it up with the bracket on our bumper, and there is a ton of adjustability here, so once you're lining up your light, if you don't like where it's sitting, you can always loosen this back up and adjust it later on. We're installing the lock washer and nut that was included in the kit, and I've added a washer in there as well, just for good measure. And with a 13mm wrench, go ahead and tighten it down. Repeat that on the other side. Now we have our bumper on its face so that we can install these grates in the center. Now if you do have a light bar, this is where you would install it, but for now we're gonna get these grates bolted up. What we have here is the hardware with a washer and lock washer pre-installed and the corresponding nut on the other side. Now we're lining these up with each of the mounting points and installing the hardware. We're gonna install these loosely for now so we can get all the pieces lined up, and then we will tighten them down later. Next up, we're gonna place the smaller grates next to the larger one and install the same hardware on those mounting points. Now we waited to tighten everything down to make sure that these are centered and lined up properly. And repeat that on the other side with the other smaller grate. And with the included Allen key and a 10mm wrench, go ahead and tighten these down. Again, make sure everything's lined up properly before you do so. All right, so now that we have our factory bumper uninstalled from our truck, we can check it out side by side with our new bumper here. Now, as you can see, this one is quite a bit smaller than your factory. It's gonna give you a ton more ground clearance when compared to the large factory bumper. It is constructed from steel, so although it is smaller, it's gonna be a ton beefier than your factory bumper, which is mostly plastic. In addition, it features a nice textured black powder coat finish to give you that aftermarket off-road look, and it does include lighting, which is a nice feature to have as well. There are also additional mounting points for more lighting down the road in the center and on the top as well. And there are brackets for an overrider hoop and mounting points for a skid plate. If you'd like to add those separately, you can find them right on the site. So with that said, let's finish up our install. Now you can get your bumper lined up on the truck. Each of the brackets goes to the outside of the frame rail, and as you line it up, you may want a friend to help you line up your factory bolts. Now that the bumper is lined up, take the factory bolt plate and slide it through your frame. Now while we are here, I did want to point out that at this point you would install your tow hooks if your truck comes with them. Our truck does not have tow hooks, but you can install this bolt through for additional support. Now, if you do have tow hooks, this bolt is part of that install. It would go through your factory tow hook, but if not, you can add it, as I said before, for some more support. From the other side, we're going to install the two factory nuts. As well as the washer, lock washer, and nut for the other side of the long bolt that would go through your tow hook. Now with a 21mm socket, we're gonna tighten down the two factory nuts. And with an 18mm socket and an 18mm wrench, tighten down the nut on the end of the bolt beneath it. Repeat that on the other side. So next step is hooking up our lighting. What we're gonna do is route this end of our wiring harness to our battery, and then route the rest of our wiring harness to our pod lights and inside our cab. We're starting at the back here on our negative battery terminal. We're removing the small nut that holds on the accessories. This is actually what tightens down your negative terminal as well. We have a 10mm socket. Remove the nut as well as the washer. Route the negative side of your wiring harness to the battery. Just slide it over the top. Replace the washer as well as the nut. Then, using your 10mm socket, tighten it back down. Now we're gonna go to the same small nut on the positive side of the battery. With your 10mm socket, loosen this nut up and remove it. Install the terminal over the positive side of the battery. Reinstall your hardware. Grab your 10mm socket and tighten it down. Now we're going to secure our relay. You can bolt this down or you can zip tie it as long as your relay is secured and not moving around. Now there's a spot right on the inside of the fender with an opening. We're just going to be going to that opening and pulling through to secure our relay. Next up, we're going to route the rest of the wiring. These two ends will go to each pod light. We're going to be routing it against the edge of the truck, underneath the rad support, and down under the grill area. Go ahead and clip in each side of the wiring harness to the pod lights. Next up, we have to route this end of the wiring into the cab for our switch. Now there's lots of different ways to route this. I'm gonna show you one, and that is down here through the fender and into the cab via a boot on the inside of your door jamb. Now this may be a little bit hard to see because of where it's located. With your door open, you should see some daylight peeking in from your fender. We're just shooting for one of those gaps so we can push our wiring through. Route your cable through. You're going to tuck it up underneath your dash once we're done and make sure it's secured. Plug in your switch. And once it's plugged in, you should be able to see the switch portion illuminated red. And then when you press it, it goes green. Now on the back side of the switch, there's some double-sided adhesive. Peel the protective layer off. And then you can place this switch wherever you like. I'm gonna go to right to this section. Again, you can put this wherever is convenient for you. And make sure to route your wiring by tucking it up underneath your dash. All right, at this point we can install the grill. What you're gonna do is line up the posts on the top, line up all the clips, and press it into place. Now we can reinstall the factory hardware in the top of the grill. And with your 10mm socket, tighten it down. Repeat that with the rest of your hardware. Now you can replace your rad support cover. Make sure you line up all of the openings for the pop clips. Now you can replace all of the factory pop clips. All right, so one thing I did want to point out with this bumper is that because it's so high clearance, the wheel well liner does stick down quite a bit. Now, if you don't like this look, you can trim this. We're not going to be trimming on our truck today, but if you would like to trim yours, what I would suggest is mark your wheel well liner along the path of your bumper and then cut along that line with a razor knife or a similar tool in order to trim it. An additional thing I wanted to point out is the windshield washer fluid reservoir does stick down a tiny bit as well. Now, if you don't like this look, you can relocate it, move it up a little bit so that it's out of the way. All right, so that is going to do it for the review and install of this bumper. And remember, for all things Silverado, keep it at AmericanTrucks.com.